Around the world, many people have disappeared over the years, apparently vanishing into thin air, without any satisfactory explanation. The mystery is heightened when neither the missing person nor their remains are ever seen again. The following are just 5 examples of such strange occurrences. These people vanished into thin air, and no one ever heard from them again. On the morning of August 4th, 1981, Toledo, Ohio, a 20-year-old girl named Cynthia Anderson left for work. Later, when the other employees arrived at the office, she was gone. Her purse and car keys were also gone, although the car itself was still parked outside. What's really creepy is that there was a book on her desk, opened at the exact spot where the main character is kidnapped at the most interesting moment. One would think that she had faked her own disappearance, yet in 30 years no trace of her existence could be found. On this account, many versions have been developed. A month after her disappearance, the police received an anonymous call. It was reported that Cynthia was being held in the basement of a white-colored house, but the information was never confirmed. One of Cynthia's co-workers was involved in drug dealing. He soon found himself behind bars. According to his rumors, she may have learned forbidden information that got her killed. Maura Murray, a student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, disappeared without a trace on February 9, 2004, and the case of her disappearance is one of the most mysterious in the history of the United States. Maura Murray was a typical American student, a girl who loved parties, socializing with friends, and working part-time at the university campus. There were no serious problems in her life that could be the reason for her disappearance, and her relatives and friends described her as a cheerful girl. That all changed a few days before she went missing. On February 5th, a university professor noticed Maura sitting in the hallway of the institution in tears. The girl said that she spoke on the phone with her sister Caitlin, who suffered from alcoholism and returned to the addiction after treatment in the clinic. A distraught Murray assured the teacher that she would be fine and retired to her room. The next day, Maura went to a party, after which she got into a serious accident with her father's car, but fortunately the girl herself was not injured. Further events that took place in her life are unknown, and the next time she made contact was on the day of her disappearance. At 13:00 on February 9th, Maura sent a message to her lover, which said that the girl now does not want to discuss any personal issues. Half an hour later, Murray sent another message. The girl wrote to her teachers that she would not be at the university for a week because she had a relative who had died. As it became known later, no one in Murray's family died. Around 7 p.m., a resident of the town of Woodsville, New Hampshire, heard a loud noise. Looking out the window, the woman saw a car involved in a serious accident, whereupon she immediately called the transportation department. At the same time, a bus pulled up to the car involved in the accident, and the driver saw a woman driving the car with no apparent injuries, but in a very disturbed state. The man suggested that she call the police, but the girl, who was Maura Murray, assured him that she had already called traffic services. At 7:49 p.m., police officers arrived at the scene of the accident. However, they found an empty vehicle on the road. Detectives were unable to get any leads that would indicate where Maura disappeared to after the accident, and witnesses claimed they saw nothing. In Maura's car, they found birth control pills, several sealed bottles of alcohol, and documents in her name. The investigation into Murray's disappearance lasted for years and continues to this day, and the girl's father sincerely hopes that Maura is alive. But there are more questions than answers in this mysterious case, including where was Maura Murray going on February 9, 2004, and why didn't she want police to help her after the accident? In 1988, a 12-year-old resident of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Jamie Williams, said something terrible to her mother that she regrets to this day. They had a fight because the girl wanted to celebrate Christmas at her grandmother's house, and her mother refused to go with her. Entering the bus, the daughter shouted, "I hope you die!" That was the last thing she had time to say to her mother. She had to spend Christmas without her. On December 27th, Rebecca called her sister Joyce and asked her to pick up Jamie and bring her home. Joyce couldn't do that and asked Rebecca's best friend for help, but he couldn't find the time to do that either. Thus, Jamie had to stay at her grandmother's house for a little while longer. In the first week of January 1989, the landlord went to Rebecca's house to get the rent, but no one opened the door for him. When he entered, he saw a strange scene. The bathtub was filled to the brim. There were 2 coffee cups on the table. The kettle was on, and packed bags of belongings were on the floor. Rebecca herself was nowhere to be found. At the landlord's request, Rebecca's brother had to empty the apartment of all belongings, thus destroying possible evidence that could be used by the investigation. Jamie remained living with her grandmother, but never stopped hoping that someday her mom would return, and the police are still searching for her. On November 29, 1980, 32-year-old Granger Taylor, caught off guard by a hurricane on a farm in Duncan, Canada, wrote his parents a farewell note of not quite ordinary content. The man said he was going to leave home and fly away with aliens in a spaceship, because he had been dreaming about traveling the galaxy for 42 months. In the letter, he indicated that he was leaving his parents all of his possessions and that they would find further instructions in his will. On the back of the letter, he drew a strange map. That evening, Granger appeared at a local diner and then disappeared without a trace. Shortly before his mysterious disappearance, Granger had built a model spaceship in which he liked to stay overnight. The man was always considered an extremely intelligent man, albeit a bit eccentric and shy. He drove a pink-colored pickup truck and, according to people, could fix anything. In March 1986, an explosion site with fragments of human bones was discovered near Granger's parents' farm. Because of the fact that the man often carried dynamite with him, with which he uprooted tree stumps, the police concluded that it was he who died at the scene of the explosion. Not everyone believed this version. Granger's best friend doubted it the most, but there was no other explanation for the man's mysterious disappearance that night. The story of its disappearance on the battlefield during World War I is one of the most mysterious and enigmatic. On August 25, 1915, an entire British regiment, along with its officers, storming the Turkish army positions near Gallipoli, entered the forest and disappeared from sight. Not a shot was heard, not the slightest rustle. 267 men disappeared without a trace. The British company reports said that the regiment was swallowed up by a fog of uncertain origin, but this hasty conclusion only confused the situation. Of course, it was easier to blame the Turkish military for this dark affair. Say, they had killed a lot of people in an unknown way. However, none of them even knew of the existence of such a unit. The British, being the victors, started searching for the Norfolk Regiment. At first, they were very lucky. On the battlefield, they found cockades, boots, epaulets of servicemen, which confirmed their belonging to the missing unit. And having found hundreds of corpses in one village, they hurried to say that the regiment heroically died in battle. Although even with the naked eye it was possible to notice some inconsistencies. For example, there was an impression that the dead were dropped from a great height. This was evidenced by the numerous fractures on the corpses and their scattering over the territory. In the early 70s of the last century, when the archives on the mysterious disappearance of the Norfolk Regiment became public, in the scientific world began a real boom. Each of the scientists put forward his hypothesis of the historical incident, but all, figuratively speaking, outnumbered British ufologists. They claimed that the cloud of unclear origin was a UFO. They claimed that the aliens had killed part of the regiment, but took the other part with them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and comment. Subscribe to not miss more interesting stories.